You are listening to PastThink.com audiobook. Please like and subscribe, thank you. Chapter 37. Welcome Rain meets the divine traveler. Black whirlwind fights with white fish. When Song Jiang reached the inspection room, he saw the head jailer there sitting on a stool. The latter immediately called out, "Is this the prisoner who recently came here?" A messenger standing there agreed to this. "So you are the black dwarf, who deserves death. Upon whose influence are you relying that you disdain to give me any money?" "Presents are made when people are on friendly footing," said Song Jiang. "Why do you demand a present? You are a mean-souled fellow." The men standing about perspired with fear when they heard this. The head jailer was very angry and replied, "Banished thief. You are very impudent. How dare you call me a mean-souled fellow? Now, executioners, seize this fellow, and give him 100 blows with the bamboo." But the men standing about were all on friendly terms with Song Jiang, and when they heard this order they all sneaked out of the room. Seeing this movement, the head jailer was very much annoyed, and taking a stick he advanced to beat Song Jiang. "Sir," said Song Jiang, "for what crime are you going to beat me? You are a criminal, and are entirely in my hands. Even if you only cough in my presence, that would be a crime. But even if I have a small fault, I am not deserving of death." "You say that you are not deserving of death," said the head jailer, who was now very angry, "but if I decide to even kill you, that can be easily done. I could kill you just like a fly." Song Jiang spoke in a sneering manner, "Because I have not given you money you think I am deserving of death. But what should a friend of Wu Yong at Liangshan Marsh deserve?" Upon hearing this, the man hastily dropped his stick and asked, "What is that you say?" "I said that Wu Yong may have a friend here." The man was startled, and seizing hold of Song Jiang asked, "Who are you? Why you talk like this?" Song Jiang laughed and said, "I am Song Jiang of Yunqing County, in Shandong." The man was surprised and saluted, saying, "So you are Song Jiang, welcome Rain. But this is not a good place for us to talk, and I cannot kowtow to you here. I request you to accompany me to a place in the town where we can talk matters over." Song Jiang agreed to this and returned to his room. He took Wu Yong's letter and some silver. He then locked the door and told a messenger to look after his room. They left the prison, and going into the town entered an inn, and sat down in an upper room. "Sir, when did you last see Wu Yong?" asked the head jailer. Song Jiang took the letter and handed it to the man, who after reading it placed it in his sleeve. He then knelt down and kowtowed to Song Jiang. Song Jiang also kowtowed and said, "What I said has upset you. Please forgive me." The jailer said, "I was informed that a criminal named Song was being sent to my prison, and I expected to get the usual 5 taels of silver. But although I waited more than 10 days, no money was sent to me, so today, as I had a little leisure, I went to investigate the matter. I never suspected that you were the man. I am afraid that my manner was rather offensive, and I ask you to overlook it kindly. I heard of you through the jailer, and wished to meet you, but as I was not certain where you lived, I thought it better to wait until you came to see me. So I had to wait a good few days. It was not that I did not intend to give you these 5 taels of silver, but simply that I wished to meet you personally. I am much pleased that we have fortunately met here today." Now who was this head jailer? He was no other than Dai Zong. Now in that period of the Song dynasty, head jailers at Jinling were called master, whereas in Hunan they were called superintendent. This superintendent Dai Zong had a very supernatural power. Whenever he had to travel on some extremely urgent matter, he wrapped a puttee bearing a picture of a divine horse over his legs. He then by magic could travel 160 li a day. If he doubled the number of puttees, then by magic he could travel 270 li daily. That was why people called him the divine traveler. These 2 men talked matters over, and became much pleased with each other. They summoned the waiter to their private compartment, and ordered a big dinner to be prepared. Song Jiang told Dai Zong all that had occurred on the journey, and the latter laid bare his heart, and told Song Jiang all his intimate relations with Wu Yong. They had been drinking for some time, and were quite intimate, when they heard a row down below. The waiter rushed into their compartment, and said, "There is a man below making a row, and nobody but you, sir, can stop him." "Who is the man?" asked Daizong. "He is the Manly, the Iron Ox, who always accompanies you on your trips, and he wants to borrow money from our manager." Daizong laughed and said, "I know the fellow. He is very unruly. I request you, sir, to stay here, and I will go and bring him upstairs." Daizong went downstairs, and soon returned with a big wild-looking man. Song Jiang was surprised at seeing him, and asked, "Sir, who is this?" "This is my assistant, Li Kuei, the Black Whirlwind, and he comes from Ishui County, in Izhou Prefecture, Shandong Province. In his own village he is called Li, the Iron Ox. There he killed a man and escaped here. The government issued a pardon afterwards, but he then had not enough money to take him back home. He is a great drunkard, and when drunk he is a dangerous man. He is skilled in the use of the battle axe and the cudgels. At present he occupies a minor post in this prison." Li Kuei, looking at Song Jiang, asked Daizong, "Who is this black fellow?" Daizong laughed and remarked to Song Jiang, "Sir, you will understand that this fellow is rather vulgar, and has no manners." "I only ask for his name," said Li Kuei, "so why do you say I am vulgar?" "Younger brother," said Daizong, "you ought to speak to me like this, 'Who is this gentleman?' But instead you asked, 'Who is this black fellow?' and that is not a nice expression. I will however tell you who he is. He is the hero whom you have often said you would try to meet." "Can he be Dark Song Jiang, Welcome Rain, of Shandong?" Daizong exclaimed, "Hey! How dare you refer to him in that coarse manner? And why don't you immediately kowtow to him, instead of delaying so long? If he is Song Jiang I will of course kowtow to him. But if he is some other fellow, why should I kowtow? Sir, do not deceive me or laugh at me about this matter." "I am Dark Song Jiang of Shandong," interposed Song Jiang. Li Kuei clapped his hands and said, "Master, why did you not say this before, and so enable the Iron Ox to have the pleasure a little sooner?" He knelt on the floor and kowtowed. Song Jiang raised him up and said, "Good fellow, please be seated." Daizong invited him to sit by his side, and drink wine with them. "Very well," said Li Kuei, "but I shall want a large bowl of wine, and not one of these little cups." "Brother," asked Song Jiang, "what was that row about down below?" "I had a big ingot of silver in a pawn shop on which they had advanced me 10 taels of silver, and today, when I asked the innkeeper to loan me 10 taels of silver to redeem the pledge at the pawn shop, he declined to advance any loan, so I got angry, and broke up many of the things in the shop. Just then you summoned me up here." "Was there any interest to be paid for the loan of the silver?" asked Song Jiang. "Yes, there was interest to be paid on the redemption of ingot." Song Jiang put his hand in his pocket, and drew an ingot of 10 taels of silver. Handing this to Li Kuei, he said, "Here is some silver, which will enable you to redeem the ingot from the pawn shop." Li Kuei took the silver, and said, "Thank you. Please wait here until I come back from the pawn shop. When I have redeemed my ingot of silver I can change it, and repay you. Then we will all go and drink wine outside the town. Please sit down, and drink wine with us now, and then go there afterwards," said Song Jiang. "I will go now, but be back very soon," said Li Kuei. He opened the curtains and departed. "It would have been better if you had not lent him that money," said Daizong. "Why not?" "Although he is straightforward, yet he has a weakness for wine and gambling. When did he ever have an ingot of silver? He has cheated you to get the money. You noticed how quickly he left us when he had got the money. He has probably gone gambling, and if he wins he will return your loan. But if he loses, how can he repay the loan? I shall then feel ashamed, as he is my assistant." Song Jiang laughed, "But we are not strangers. Don't talk about such small things. If he wants to gamble, then never mind. My opinion is that he is a loyal and straightforward man. He is a skilled athlete and is very brave, but has a very coarse nature. In the prison when he is drunk he never hits the prisoners, but is always fighting with the brave jailers. I have had a lot of trouble with him. He always takes up the cudgels on behalf of the weaker brothers, and for this reason the people of this town are afraid of him. Let us have another drink, said Song Jiang, and then go for a stroll outside the town. I had forgotten, said Dai Zong, that I have not yet shown you the scenery round here. When Li Kuei had left with the silver he thought, Song Jiang is not a common man. We are not old friends, and yet he immediately advanced me this money. He is a hero who despises wealth and stands for justice, of that there is no shadow of doubt. These few days I have lost all my money in gambling so that I have not even a cash, and cannot invite him to dine with me. Now that I have the money I will gamble again, and when I have won I will then go and invite him to a feast. Li Kuei went outside the town, and entering the gambling den of little Zhang Yi, he took his seat at the table and put down his money. He called out, "Give me the dice box. I will be banker this time." The proprietor knew that Li Kuei had always been fair in his gambling, so he said, "Elder brother, let us just finish this round, and then you can have the dice box." "But I want to gamble now." "You had better watch us on one side, and do the guessing," said little Zhang Yi. "I am not going to guess. I want to gamble, and here is my stake 5 taels of silver." He took the dice box and asked, "Now what is your stake?" "I will stake 5 taels also," said little Zhang Yi. Li Kuei threw the dice, but only low numbers turned up. Little Zhang Yi reached across for the money, but Li Kuei said, "I have 10 taels here." "But you staked 5 taels, and if you had won I would have paid you that amount." Li Kuei did not answer, but threw the dice again, and again only low numbers turned up. Little Zhang Yi laughed and said, "Do not be in such a hurry. You have shaken twice with bad luck. You had better rest a bit now." "But this money belongs to another man," said Li Kuei. "That makes no difference. You will pay just the same. You have lost, so we need not discuss anything else." "Very well," said Li Kuei. "But please lend me some money, and I will repay you tomorrow." "That is nonsensical talk," said little Zhang Yi. "There is an old saying, in gambling there are no duties, to parents or brothers, observed. You have lost, so why wrangle about the money?" "Will you give me the money, or not?" asked Li Kuei. "Li Kuei, you have always been straight in gambling, so how is it that today you wrangle about such a clear case?" But Li Kuei did not reply. Instead he grabbed the money, and also all the others' silver on the table, and put it in his coat. He then said, "I have always been straight, but today I cannot observe the usual procedure." Little Zhang Yi now advanced to attempt to recover the money, but Li Kuei struck him a blow, and knocked him to the ground, while all the other gamblers rushed forward to recover their money, but Li Kuei hit on every side, and kept them off. He then rushed away to escape. The gatekeeper tried to stop him, saying, "Where are you going?" But Li Kuei pushed him on one side, opened the gate, and went out. The gamblers were following him, and as they reached the gate they called out, "Li Kuei, you are quite unfair to take all our money." There was not one who was brave enough to pursue him, but as Li Kuei was running, a man took hold of him and called out, "Why do you take other people's money?" "What has it got to do with you?" asked Li Kuei. Turning his head he saw that the man was Dai Zong, and behind him was Song Jiang. He was surprised at seeing them there, and said, "Brothers, please excuse me. Previously the Iron Ox has always been fair and square in gambling, but today I have lost the money you gave me. I wished to invite you to a feast, but as I had no money I got annoyed, and grabbed other people's money." Song Jiang laughed at this. "If you are short of money you can always come and ask for it from me. As you have lost all your money to him today, you had better give him the money." Li Kuei took all the money out of his coat, and placed it in Song Jiang's hands. The latter summoned little Zhang Yi and handed him the money. Little Zhang Yi said, Li Kuei lost 10 taels of silver to me, but although he took it by force I will not take it back from him. I have no desire to make him my enemy. You can take the money, said Song Jiang, without being afraid of him in the future. Little Zhang Yi was however still unwilling to take the money. Has he already injured any of you? Asked Song Jiang. He struck the banker, the other gamblers, and the gatekeeper, said little Zhang Yi. Then, take this 10 taels of silver from Li Kuei and distribute it among those men as compensation for their wounds. I will take Li Kuei away, and he will not trouble you again. Little Zhang Yi took the money, and after expressing his thanks went his way. Song Jiang asked the other two to go with him and drink wine. On the riverside there is the Pipa Pavilion. It is the ruins of a building of the Tang dynasty. We can drink wine there and enjoy the view of the river. We can buy some eatables in the town and take them there with us, suggested Song Jiang. There is no need for that, said Daizong. We can get all we want at the inn. All right, said Song Jiang. They all proceeded to the Pipa Pavilion, and entering they found about 10 tables arranged. They selected a clean one, and sat down according to the rules of propriety, Song Jiang in the place of honor, Daizong facing him, and Li Kuei at the side. They called for wine and food. The proprietor brought them large jars of the best wine, and Li Kuei said, "Let us have big bowls, as I do not like these small cups." "What a rude fellow you are," said Daizong. "You just drink your wine and keep quiet." "We too will have the small cups," said Song Jiang to the proprietor, "but you can let this gentleman have a big bowl." The proprietor did this, and Li Kuei laughingly said, "What a splendid fellow you are. People spoke well and truly of you. How well you have met my desires. Life will not be unworth to live when I have you as my sworn brother." After they had drunk about 6 cups of wine, Song Jiang saw that they were getting merry, and he thought it would be nice to have some hot chili fish soup. He asked Daizong whether they could get fresh fish at the inn. Daizong laughed. "Have you not noticed that all the boats on the river are fishing boats? This is just the place to get abundant fish." "Well, how would it be if we had some fresh hot chili fish soup?" Daizong called the waiter and ordered fish for 3. Very soon it was served, and when Song Jiang saw it he said, "Excellent food served in a superb dish. Although the inn is small yet the dishes are extremely fine." He took up his chopsticks and invited the others to partake with him. He ate a little of the fish and tasted the soup. Li Kuei, however, did not use his chopsticks, but took the fish in his hand and ate it including the bones. Song Jiang could hardly suppress his laughter, and after taking a little more soup put down his chopsticks and said, "It is just a habit of mine to drink a little fish soup after drinking wine. This fish does not seem to be very nice." "I also do not like it," said Daizong. "Salted fish does not suit my taste." Li Kuei finished the fish in his own bowl, and then remarked, "As you 2 elder brothers do not like it I will eat it for you." So he reached across the table, and with his hand took the fish from Song Jiang's bowl and ate it. He then did the same with Daizong's bowl of fish. When he had finished the table was covered with the soup which had dripped from the fish. Song Jiang summoned the waiter and told him, "Our brother here is very hungry, so please bring plenty of meat for him, and I will pay for it." The waiter said they had only mutton, no beef. Upon hearing this Li Kuei took the bowl of soup and threw it in the waiter's face and clothes. "Why do you do that?" asked Daizong. "Because that fellow is so unreasonable," replied Li Kuei. "He insults me by saying that I can eat beef only." "I just asked you what meat you would like," said the waiter. "Go and bring what you have got," said Song Jiang. The waiter smothered his anger, and soon returned with a tray of mutton which he placed on the table. Li Kuei without saying a word reached out his hands, and took the mutton. He had very soon eaten the whole lot. "What a robust fellow," exclaimed Song Jiang. "He is really a strong man." "How well you understand my nature," replied Li Kuei. "The mutton is much better than the fish." Daizong spoke to the waiter, You have especially fine dishes, but the fish you served in them was not of the best. If you have any better fish, please bring some for my friend here." The waiter laughed and said, "I dare not deceive you, gentlemen. The fish was caught yesterday. The live fish caught today is still on the boats, and we cannot buy it until the wholesale dealer begins to sell. For this reason we cannot supply you with fresh fish today." Li Kuei jumped up. "I myself will go and buy a pair of live fish for my elder brothers." "You must not go," said Daizong. "The waiter can go himself and ask for some fish." "The fisherman will let me have the fish at once," said Li Kuei. "It is a small thing." He went off at once, although Daizong tried to stop him. Daizong spoke to Song Jiang. "I hope that you will excuse me for introducing that kind of man to you. He is not a respectable man, and I am somewhat ashamed of his manners." "That is his natural disposition, and how can you help it? I think he is a very sincere and honest man." They stayed in the Pipa pavilion joking and talking for some time. Li Kuei arrived at the river bank, and there he saw about 10 fishing boats all tied up in a line along the quay, under overhanging willow trees. Most of the fishermen were asleep on board, but there were a few repairing the nets, and some bathing in the river. That time was about the middle of June, and the sun was just setting in a red western sky. The wholesale merchant who sold the fish was not there. Li Kuei shouted out, "Bring me 2 fresh fish." A fisherman replied, "The wholesale merchant has not come, and we dare not sell any fish without him. You see that all the fish dealers are waiting for him over there." "Why should I wait for any damned fish merchant?" said Li Kuei. "Let me have 2 fish at once." "We have not yet burnt the joss paper for the spirits, so how can we let you have any fish?" replied the fisherman. Li Kuei saw that they would not give him the fish, so he jumped onto the boat. The fish was in tanks in the holds, and although Li Kuei did not understand the arrangements of the boat, he removed a bamboo screen. The fisherman could not stop him, and the spectators on the bank were astounded. Li Kuei groped inside the water, but could not find a single fish. These boats had a hole at the stern which kept the tanks supplied with fresh water. There was a small bamboo screen, which, although admitting the water, prevented the fish from leaving the tank. Because of this arrangement, the fish was always fresh when sold at Jiangzhou. When Li Kuei had removed the bamboo screen, all the fish in the tank had escaped. As he could find no fish, Li Kuei jumped onto another boat and did the same thing again. About 80 fishermen now rushed at Li Kuei with bamboo poles to beat him. He, seeing the advancing crowd, immediately stripped off his coat and shirt, and seizing about 6 of the nearest bamboo poles in both hands, he broke them into pieces at once. The fishermen were astonished at his strength, and immediately unloosened the moorings of the other boats and sculled them away from the wharf. Li Kuei was now very angry, and taking one of the broken bamboo poles, he leapt ashore, but the fish merchants there immediately put down their loads and ran away. In the noise and confusion, a man arrived on the scene, and the men called out, "Here comes the merchant. This black man has been trying to seize the fish, and so has frightened away all the fishing boats." "Who has dared to do this crazy thing?" asked the merchant. The men pointed to Li Kuei. "There he is. He threatens to beat us." "You fellow with a leopard's heart and a tiger's gall," said the merchant, "how dare you come here and upset my affairs like this?" Li Kuei saw that the merchant was big-sized and of about 33 years of age. He had a black mustache and wore a blue turban with a red ribbon entwined in his hair. His shirt was of white cloth, and he had a silk girdle. His hempen sandals were fastened with black and white strings. In his hand he carried a balance. He handed the balance to another man, and, advancing, shouted at Li Kuei, "Whom are you going to fight?" Li Kuei did not answer, but lifted his bamboo pole to strike the man. The man stepped forward and seized hold of the pole. Li Kuei seized hold of the man's hair. The man raised his foot and kicked Li Kuei, who, however, still held on to his opponent's hair. The man struck several blows with his fist, but Li Kuei did not mind these at all. But when the man kicked him, he pulled the man down to the ground and hit him with his fist. His blows were like iron mallets and sounded like the beating of a drum. The man had no means of escape, but a bystander seized hold of Li Kuei by the waist, and another man took hold of Li Kuei's hand, and they called out, "Stop this! Stop this!" Li Kuei, turning his head, saw that the men holding him were Song Jiang and Dai Zong. He at once released his hold, and the man immediately rushed away. Dai Zong complainingly said to Li Kuei, "I told you not to come here for fish, and now I find you fighting. If you had killed the man, would you not have had to answer for it in prison? You are afraid that I would implicate you. If I had killed a man, I would answer the charge of murder, and not you." "Brother, do not discuss the matter any further," said Song Jiang. "Let us go and drink some more wine." Li Kuei got his coat and shirt, and throwing them over his arm, he accompanied the other two. They had gone hardly 10 steps when they heard a man behind cursing them. "You deserve death. I want to fight with you, and we will see who will win this time." Li Kuei turned round and saw it was the very man he had just fought with. He was now stripped naked except for a small pair of drawers. His hair was bound up with red tapes on top of his head without a turban. He was by himself and carried a bamboo pole such as are used on boats. He was quickly approaching on a small boat and shouted, "You rascal, deserving of hacking into 1,000 pieces. If I were afraid of you, I should not be brave. If you walk away, you are coward." Li Kuei roared with rage at this, and throwing down his clothing he stepped forward. He and the man cursed each other, and as Li Kuei was standing on the bank, the man threatened to strike his leg with the bamboo pole. Li Kuei leapt onto the boat, and what happened occurred quicker than we can relate. The man had inveigled Li Kuei to come on the boat, for as soon as Li Kuei was on board he pushed the boat away from the wharf, and it floated off into the current. Li Kuei could swim only a little, so this movement filled him with fear. The man put down his pole, and addressed Li Kuei, "Now we will fight, and see who will win." He seized Li Kuei's arm. "But before we fight, I am going to give you a drink of water." He was standing with both legs outstretched, and all at once he moved his weight onto one leg, turned the boat upside down, and threw them both into the river. Song Jiang and Dai Zong had watched all this from the bank, and were excited when both men fell into the river with a mighty splash. There was a big crowd of men also watching this, and one of them said, "That black man has now got his deserts. Even if he does not drown, he will get a bellyful of water." Now they could see both men in the water, and the boatman caught hold of Li Kuei, and ducked him into the water again. They struggled together in the water, but there was not a single man on the wharf who did not applaud the spectacle. It was evident that Li Kuei was getting the worst, as he was frequently pushed down underneath the water. Song Jiang asked Dai Zong to get someone to act as peacemaker. Dai Zong asked the crowd who the boatman was, and a man replied, "He is Zhang Shun, and is the wholesale dealer in fish here." Song Jiang was startled upon hearing this. Surely can he not be Zhang Shun, the white fish? "Yes, that is so. I have a letter from his brother Zhang in my quarters," said Song Jiang. Dai Zong, hearing this, shouted at the top of his voice, "Brother Zhang, stop this fighting. Here is a letter from your elder brother. That man is one of us, and you can forgive him, and come here to talk matters over." Zhang Shun heard this, and also recognized Dai Zong, so he released Li Kuei, and swam to the wharf. He saluted and said, "Sir, please excuse me. In my behalf I will ask you to go and save that man's life," said Dai Zong. "When you return with him I will introduce you to somebody." Zhang Shun without a word dived into the river, and soon reached Li Kuei, who was in difficulties. Zhang Shun took hold of Li Kuei with one hand, and treading the water, and swimming with the other hand, drew Li Kuei towards the wharf. Upon their landing all the crowd applauded. Song Jiang was filled with admiration at this fine display by Zhang Shun. Li Kuei was alternately vomiting water, and taking in deep draughts of breath. "Let us all go to the Pipa Pavilion, and talk matters over there," suggested Dai Zong. Li Kuei and Zhang Shun put on their clothes, and all four set off for the inn. When they had all taken their seats, Dai Zong spoke to Zhang Shun, "Brother, do you know me?" "Yes, I know you, but I have had no opportunity of meeting you before this," said Zhang Shun. Daizong pointed at Li Kuei and said, "He has offended you today, but surely you also know him." "Of course I know brother Li Kuei. Only we have never been at loggerheads previously." "But you nearly drowned me today," interposed Li Kuei. "You gave me a good beating too," responded Zhang Shun. "Well, I hope that you will both turn out to be good friends," said Daizong. "Remember the saying, friends are often made after a fight." "You avoid meeting me on the road," said Li Kuei. "Well, I prefer to meet you in the water," said Zhang Shun. They all laughed at this joke and agreed not to talk about that affair again. Daizong, pointing at Song Jiang, asked Zhang Shun whether he knew who that was. Zhang Shun said he did not. He did not remember having met him before. Li Kuei got up and said, "This elder brother is Song Jiang. Can he be welcome reign of Shandong, Song Jiang?" "Yes, it is he," said Daizong. Zhang Shun kowtowed and said, "I have heard of your great fame for a long time, but have never expected to meet you. All travelers speak highly of you, your great generosity, and your distribution of wealth and good cause." "Do not mention my small affairs," said Song Jiang. "A few days ago I was at Jieyang Mountain, and stayed with Li Jun, Muddy Water Dragon, and afterwards at Xuanyang River I met your brother, Zhang Heng, who gave me a letter to hand to you. It is in my baggage at my lodgings." He then explained how they had come to the Pipa Pavilion to drink wine, and how Li Kuei had gone to get some fresh fish against their wishes. How they had heard a row, and had come to see what had happened. He said he had been exceedingly fortunate in meeting 3 heroes in one day. He asked them all to drink 3 cups of wine with him to celebrate the auspicious occasion. "If you wish fresh fish," said Zhang Shun, "I myself will go and get some." Li Kuei offered to go with him, but Daizong objected, "Have you not had enough river water for today?" Zhang Shun laughed and taking Li Kuei by the hand said, "You come with me for the fish, and we will see how the fishermen will look upon us." So they both set off, and upon reaching the wharf Zhang Shun whistled, and all the fishing boats in the river came at once to the wharf. Zhang Shun called out, "Which boat has caught golden carp today?" 2 men on different boats called out that they had the fish, and they soon brought about 10 big carp to the wharf. Zhang Shun selected 4 of the biggest, strung them on a willow twig, and handing them to Li Kuei told him to take them to the pavilion. He stayed behind to see the fish weighed and sold to the various dealers. When he got back to the Pipa Pavilion, Song Jiang said to him, "Why do you send so many fine fish? 1 would have been enough." "These are only small things, and not worth mentioning," said Zhang Shun. "You can take what you like, and any left over you can take along to your lodgings." They all sat down in order of seniority. The waiter was told to boil the fish, and to steam another one in wine. While this was being done they drank wine and chatted together about their respective affairs. They then saw a girl about 16 years of age, wearing crepe clothes, who came to their table, gave them the usual woman's salutations, and commenced to sing. Now it happened that Li Kuei was just then in the midst of relating a story of his own exploits, and found it interrupted by the song, and that the other 3 were only listening to the music. He was annoyed, and jumping up he flipped the girl's forehead with 2 fingers. The girl made an exclamation and fell down. She lay there without moving. The waiter was frightened and told the 4 guests that they must not attempt to leave until the matter had been investigated by the proper officials. The unforeseen may sometimes end conditions which are perfect. We will now relate how Song Jiang and his friends escaped from the pavilion.